Okay, guys, I want to tell you about a project that is very dear to my heart. It's called the Citadel. And this is where we do deep research and we create scrolls that we can reference for future reference that are of high value. All right, this is for any project where I need to do some research that's going to be important, it's going to be useful, and I'm going to want to reference it again, and I'm going to want to make sure it's right. Before I show you what I built, I want to tell you about why I built it, and I want to use an example from something I'm doing today, where I'm just doing a little research here on what is currently the best value LLM to use. Now, just to say a minute about why this is an important question. I spend $200 a month on tokens, and if I had a higher budget, I would use it. I always use my budget every month because I am prolific with LLMs, and I use my budgets. You'll probably see why very shortly. But oftentimes one model versus another is going to give you a 10x value, and using the right model for the right task is very important, is a very important thing to me. And these are changing every month. Okay, these are changing every month because Cursor or Claude Code subsidizes a model, and these things have real impact. Using the right model for the right job. So I say here, this isn't going to win any prompt awards. Compare all the modern LLMs and give me a cost value analysis using the SWE-bench, which is a benchmark for LLMs, scores and values to recommend the best value to execute plans built with Opus on Cursor. So I build plans on Opus in Cursor and I execute. That's relevant because sometimes in the Cursor ecosystem, you get certain discounts that you don't on Claude Code, right? Which could be another prompt for another day. I'm not even going to get into the whole Cursor Claude Code conversation on this video. Don't even tempt me. So anyway, so be sure to include Gemini Flash, Sonnet, and Composer Cursor's LLM at various thinking levels and model version permutations. Sometimes actually older models give you more bang for the buck, and it's an interesting thing that I've seen on Reddit. Would like opinions on coding medium level complexity tasks as well as just generate a driver for doing my tasks, etc. Cost value analysis, please. Sometimes models that you use for coding are different that you would use for other tasks, and so I'm trying to allude to that here. So this is gonna, this isn't gonna win any awards. It's gonna do all this. But this prompt is, whatever. It's a B minus prompt, frankly. So it's gonna go and it's gonna do all this research. What's it gonna do? It does all this stuff, and then it says search for search for search for verified leaderboard, and it's looking up all these sites, epic.ai, virtu.com. I've never heard of any of these people. Is this even credible research? I don't know. What is this search? Is this Googling stuff and then coming up with random websites? Seems like it. And then it's going to come up with, this explanation based on some crappy research. And maybe you're going to blame my prompt. Maybe you're going to say, oh, if you did a better prompt, it would have been better. But yeah, no, it wouldn't have been. But you can try that. So the problem here that I'm identifying, and the reason for the tech that I've built is I want to have a better approach for how we do research that is, has better results and has a better methodology for how that research is done. I am like this whole idea of Sonnet 4.6 being the best value executor, I know to be patently wrong. And this whole approach is just sus, mid, F minus approach, random ass websites, etc. This is why I built the Citadel, okay? So just switching gears here for a second. So look, this will give you an overview of how this process works. What it does is, first of all, it's going to give you feedback on the actual prompt that you built. And it's going to, let me just scroll up to the top here. It's a very long process that it goes through in its research. But the first thing it's going to do is it's going to give you feedback on your mid prompt and make sure that it's solid. It's going to define a problem statement and then do additional context and ask you if it looks good. And if you see something that looks a little weird, you can give it feedback, okay? So right out of the gate, there's some value there, all right? So then, and I'm not going to go through this in detail verbatim, all these different steps and how that works. This could be a 20-minute video if anyone watches this and they want to go deeper, happy to get into it. But what it does then is it's going to look first through Reddit, okay? It's going to look through Reddit and it's going to first ask me, it's going to propose some keywords that it thinks might be a good starting point. And I'm going to go give it some feedback, like, oh, make sure to Composer versus Gemini. And it's going to use this as sort of a starting set of keywords. Then it's going to go through Reddit with those keywords that we've just gone through in this. And it's going to then discover through Reddit better keywords. All right, because it's like the question is, what are the people talking about in Reddit? A lot of the content in Reddit is pure garbage, but we can at least refine our keywords so we can do the next thing, incredibly surgical, which is defining we're going to go on YouTube using the refined keywords from Reddit and search for the best content, long form videos that have been put out recently. We're going to download all those transcripts, and then we're going to process those transcripts as the heart of our analysis. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to look up any issues that have come up that are maybe different people saying different things or ambiguities, and we're going to do a web search based on the things that came up in those transcripts where we would think there's some ambiguity. Then we're going to look up through GitHub, which isn't really applicable in this use case, but it is for many, and so on and so forth. Really, I'm trying to keep this short for you guys. Then after we've done this whole thing, we have a template here where we're going to create a summary. So because this research that we're doing, we want to be able to use it and reference it in the future, right? Less applicable in this use case, but sometimes research, I want to continuously reference it. When I'm building something, I'll say, look up research on best RAG practices, and then it's going to look up my own research, which then has looked up, the best research from Reddit to YouTube to Medium, etc. in this integrated fashion. And then I'm always going to have it from all this research propose the top 3 options and then a recommendation on these options, and it's always going to have the same structure, with a clear recommendation and a clear list of risks, concerns, and assumptions, always in this format. Now, it's gone through this whole thing. I'm not going to, just for the sake of time, going through this process is a step-by-step. It's a workflow that goes step by step in a repeatable way. How we build that could be a 20-minute video. It uses skills, it uses workflows, it uses these prompt frameworks that are just a whole 20-minute video, but this is what it does, okay? And to jump over for 1 second to the final result, so it's going to have this metadata. This is more for lookup, less relevant for the future. It's going to put some tags in here and some summary because I have a whole CITADEL UI, which I'm going to show you guys in a coming soon video. It's going to pull all that metadata out there, but more importantly, all right, it's going to, again, we have the problem statement, additional context, all very well written, all very solid. It's because all the confirmed keywords that have been the process of a methodical Reddit discover, my trash to better to Reddit to refine to immaculate, or maybe immaculate's going too far, but some thought's been going into that. That's going, then here's this sort of a research log, all the different things that it did. It pulled 3 videos that it found, 3 transcripts. Because sometimes, as I'm also, not only am I constantly researching, but I'm also constantly refining the research process. So this just gives me a little insight into what happened. So maybe, I might refine this and say, hey, let's not look up, that YouTube influencer in the future. I disagree with them or whatever. So anyway, it's going to give me all of the, all of the searches it did. It's going to reference it all. And then maybe you're just wondering, okay, well, what's the bottom line? All right, what's the bottom line here? So it's going to say, this is what it says here. Here's your primary strategy. You want to use a Cursor Pro 80-20 split, where Composer 2 fast auto mode is a daily default, and Claude Sonnet 4.6 no thinking for on-demand complexity for general tasks. This is the optimal strategy based on the data. Cursor Pro has 2 separate usage pool. Blah blah blah. While Sonnet draws from the $20 a month API pool. Using Composer 2 as auto mode costs nothing. Blah blah blah. Here's the and this is this Cursor 2 is 50% cheaper than Sonnet 4.6. Before I read this, I was always using Sonnet 4.6 on thinking mode. This has changed. Just this report has changed how I use what models and when. And just compare. This is the just general research I put into Claude didn't even mention this. This is now what I do every day. And this interesting distinction here about the 4.6 thinking has been kind of an eye-opener for me. And I might go through this afterwards and have questions like, hey, tell me more about this 4.6 thinking. And then it will reference all this other stuff to answer my questions as I have them, because it's really interesting to me, when to use thinking versus not thinking. And I have done that. But, so look, I want to kind of, get on the exit path, get on the exit thing here. you know, we now have a document here. I have learned something as a result of it. I am going to, you know, I'm going to play around Composer 2 fast. I'm going to play around with Sonnet 4.6 no thinking. I will see how often it breaks for my use cases with my code complexity and find the sweet spot for my code base between these options. This change will result in me having probably a 2x of a budget, you know, which is great. I can already feel the cynics out there saying, "Oh, you know, just go to Claude Code." Okay, calm down, guys. But that's a whole other video. I find this very useful. I find this incredibly helpful, and maybe this inspires some of you guys to just see what's possible in terms of how you think about research and workflows more generally. I will be wrapping this entire workflow into a UI when I have time, but for right now, it's just it exists here. Exists here in my as a set of cursor workflows. You can get those workflows on. You know, I've got all my workflows published there in the SLOPDOG repo, which you can find at toddmarl.com. Be well.